All right, hey guys, how you doing? So unfortunately, my fever came back with a vengeance. So I decided that I'm not gonna lose another day, and I'm just gonna record myself teaching. That way, you guys get the most out of the review as possible, even without me being there. Excuse my voice. My voice actually got worse, but I'm fighting through it. Hoping I'm gonna go to urgent care, and I'm hoping to be back by Friday. But all right, before I even start. I do want to acknowledge the track and field accident that happened yesterday. It's been weighing very heavy on my heart. And those kids are on my mind. I know every single one of them. And I'm hoping that they're off to a speedy recovery. I did get news that they're all stable, although there are injuries. Yeah, just know that those kids are on my mind. We have one of them in AP government. And yeah, just wanted to acknowledge that before I start. Okay. Oh, God, excuse me. So, there are three sets of notes next to the printer. Okay. I want you to take all three and paste them into your notebook as three separate pages. Okay. As far as the summaries, the next set of four are due tomorrow. So those are the ones that I currently have on the slides. So yeah, it's going to be eight total by Friday. And then I want you to worry about the review ones over the weekend. Okay. For today, again, I'm reviewing topics 2.1 through 2.2. It's going to be 5 slides. And if you haven't already, go and get those notes. They're by the printer and glue them in. And then pause this video when you're ready. Okay. All right. So without further ado, let's get to it. All right. So this is all stuff that you should have covered with Rodarte. Okay. So Congress has a bicameral legislature. That means that it's a two-house legislator to represent the states in the federal government. The House of Representatives represents the people, proportional to representation, and the Senate represents the states, and they have equal representation, meaning two per state. Right? This structure slows down lawmaking, but it is intentional. It forces compromise. It forces the parties to talk to each other and figure things out, and it prevents any one group from dominating policy. This goes back to the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan from APUSH, just so you know. And the 17th Amendment changed things too. Before, state legislatures chose their U.S. senators, meaning the states chose their own senators, not the people. But this led to corruption. This led to deadlocked state legislators being unable to agree on a senator. So the 17th Amendment was passed, and it allowed for people to choose their own senators, which is the system we have today. Okay, so people directly elect their senators. As far as the size and the terms, the House of Representatives is 435 members, and they work off of 2-year terms. They have smaller districts, so they're meant to have a more direct connection with their constituents, aka the people that they serve. And those districts are reapportioned or redrawn every 10 years when the census happens. Okay? Because elections happen so frequently with the Senate, the members are often campaigning. They literally have to do campaigns every 2 years, and they adjust their priorities to reflect public opinion. This is on purpose. This is so that not one person can hold on to power forever, although it does happen, but it forces the House to be very responsive to the people that they serve. Okay. And then we have the Senate. This is designed as the upper chamber, and it's meant to be more stable, more experienced, and more immune from rapid political swings. There's only 100 members. They serve 6-year terms, and they're elected on a rolling basis, meaning that only 1/3 of the Senate is up for election every 2 years. So that's how they keep the 6-year terms, but also make sure that every midterm election or general election that there's people being reapportioned or reelected. Okay. Next section. And then we got caucuses. So caucuses are factions within the party. So we have Republicans and we have Democrats, but within the Democrats, there's different belief groups. And within the Republicans, there's different belief groups too. These factions matter because they can influence party leadership, they can make or break legislation, they can push for the things that they want to push for. And they exist because people are complex, right? Independent districts have specific interests. And oftentimes those groups will want to push the party that they're a part of in a certain direction. A couple of examples are currently the Progressive Caucus that has Alexandria Ocasio Cortez and Ilhan Omar. Right? Those are the super left wing. Excuse me. We also have a new Democrat coalition. They're more centrist and they're more pro business. And then we have the Blue Dog Coalition, who's made up of moderate Democrats that often swing conservative to Democrat depending on the issue. We also have a House Freedom Caucus. It's a far right Republican faction that pushes for limited government. They oppose spending increases, and they often challenge grand old party GOP Republican leadership to make them more right leaning. Okay, so it's like parties within a party, if you will. So Democrats have them, Republicans have them, and they try to push their party in their desired direction. Okay. All right, next slide. Now let's go over the powers of Congress. Okay. So first, obviously, is power of the purse. They can raise revenue, they can budget, and appropriations, right, which means them actually approving spending. This lets Congress check the president and control the bureaucracy by giving or denying funds. Second is one of the most powerful ones is regulating commerce, foreign and interstate, meaning between states, trade. This matters because this means Congress can regulate minimum wage. This means Congress can push for civil rights in businesses. They control air travel, trucking, national markets like banking, and the internet. The Commerce Clause, that's what it's called, is one of the broadest sources of congressional power. All right. Third, foreign and military affairs. Congress can declare war. They can raise and fund enemies. They can approve military budget. They can authorize the draft, and they can approve treaties. Although, keep in mind, approving treaties is only in the Senate, okay, not in the House. The Senate approves treaties, all right? This matters because even though the president is commander in chief, Congress holds the money and the legal authority to start and or limit war, okay? Fourth is implied powers, also known as the elastic clause. This is huge, right? This is likely to be on the AP test in some way, shape, or form. It gives Congress the authority to make laws that are necessary and proper to carry out its listed powers, its enumerated powers, right? For example, I've been using this one all week, creating the IRS or setting up federal banks like we saw in McCulloch v. Maryland or Civil Rights Act enforcement. This allows Congress to be flexible and function in a modern world, right? Something to ponder. I just put it in there. I would have made this a discussion if I was in class today. But what happens if a president takes the power from Congress? For example, Trump imposing tariffs without approval from Congress or blocking approved funds to colleges without their approval, which we saw. We saw Trump do that recently, right? And here's a few things that Congress can do. Oh, it's not up there. There it is. Sorry. Something to ponder. What happens if a president takes the power from Congress? Trump imposing tariffs, blocking approved funds to colleges without their approval. One, Congress can challenge the president in court, so they can straight up take him to court. They can change the law or restrict funding because they do have power of the purse. Congress can use oversight hearings, or worst case scenario, they can impeach. Did they do this? No, because Trump controls the House and the Senate right now. But they can do that. Okay, so just a what if scenario. And then we can get into the differing powers of the House and the Senate. Okay, the House proposes revenue bills. They can impeach a president. They can select a president when no electoral majority is reached. Okay, and those are things that the House can do that are unique to just the House. Mind you, they can impeach a president, but they cannot convict him. That's only the Senate. Okay, and when the Electoral College fails to select a president, and we've seen this before when there were more than two candidates back in the day, then the House can choose that president because they're meant to be closer to the people. Okay. And then we got the Senate. They're the more deliberative chamber. They approve or reject presidential nominees for cabinet secretaries. You guys know this, for Supreme Court judges and for top agency heads. The example that I used the other day, right? They rejected Robert Bork in 1987 for the Supreme Court. And in 2020, they confirmed Amy Coney Barrett, despite the fact that we were really close to the election. That's the power that the Senate has. As I mentioned before, also, they approve foreign treaties. A two-thirds vote is required, but they do that. For example, they approved the NATO treaty, but they rejected the Treaty of Versailles after World War One. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, they convict impeached officials. So the House impeaches, but the Senate holds the trial. So they operate kind of like a courthouse. But conviction requires two-thirds vote. So they cannot remove officially after impeachment somebody from office until there's a full two-thirds vote. The Senate acquitted all the times that presidents were impeached. They acquitted Andrew Johnson, they acquitted Bill Clinton, and they acquitted Trump twice. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I don't think they'll ask you about that, but keep it in mind. Right, next section. All right, so leadership. We got the Speaker of the House, right? That's like the leader of the majority party. Lots and lots of power. And they organize meetings, committees, and debate speakers. And then we have the majority and the minority leaders. They serve as the main spokespeople for their party. Okay, they plan strategy, they plan floor debate, and they're the first recognized to speak after the Speaker of the House. Okay. And then we have the whips. They're like the people that count the votes, and it's on them to pressure party members of their own party to vote with their party. Because sometimes, like, say Republicans are behind a bill and they're not 100% sure if all of the Republicans in the House are going to vote in favor of it. It's the whip's job to call them like the night before and be like, hey, you're not going to break ranks with us, right? Like, you're still going to vote with us. You're not going to betray us. That's what the whips do. It's their job to keep their party in line. Okay. And then in the Senate, we have president of the Senate, right? The vice president of the US breaks ties. We saw this a lot with Kamala Harris when the Senate was 50-50 Republican and Democrat. Kamala Harris would break the vote many, many times. And then we have the president pro tempore. They step in. It's usually the senior most member of the majority party, and they preside when the vice president is absent. So if the vice president is not there for whatever reason, the president pro tempore takes over. Okay, kind of like a backup. But that's mostly ceremonial. Like 99% of the time, the vice president is going to be there, especially if they know that the Senate is 50-50. Like, they will make sure that they are there. Okay. And then we have Senate majority leaders. They are the most powerful person in the Senate. Okay. They set the legislative calendar, like what they're going to take up. They decide which bills reach the floor. They control debate, and they represent the entire Senate majority. They basically run the show. Mitch McConnell is very, very powerful, or he was, and he blocked Merrick Garland in 2016. So that's an example right there. He literally blocked a Supreme Court justice for almost an entire year, as I mentioned in class. Okay. Sorry, let me load these all in before I talk. Oops. All right, so now let's get into committees. This is a lot, but I'm going to try my best to keep it as straightforward as possible, and hopefully the notes help you. All right, so we got standing committees. These are permanent committees, so they're there no matter what, and they focus on a specific policy area, meaning like taxes or the military or courts or agriculture, and they're always there. Okay. And then we got leadership there, right? We got the chairperson. They're going to be the senior member of the majority party. And then we got ranking members who are senior parties of the senior members of the minority party, right? A couple powerful examples are the House Judiciary Committee. They handle issues related to federal crimes, impeachment, or defining what unlawful behavior is. And then the second example I have up there is the Ways and Means Committee. They write tax policy, excuse me, and oversee revenue collection. Okay. Next, we have joint committees. These are committees with members from both the House and the Senate that handle routine tasks or conduct research. For example, we have the Joint Committee on the Library of Congress, and they oversee the library's operation and administration. Okay. Third, give me a second. Third, we got select committees. They're temporary committees, so they're not forever, and they're formed for specific investigations. So, for example, if they want to create a committee on global warming, then they can form that committee. It's temporary, and they research global warming, climate change. Okay. Fourth would be conference committees. These are also temporary committees that are created to resolve differences between House and Senate versions of a bill. This ensures that both chambers agree on exact wording before a bill goes to the president. It's meant to save time. It's meant to stop a bill from being stopped constantly. And it happens after each chamber passes its own version. And obviously, before the bill is sent to the president's desk. It's meant to save time. All right. And last slide of review. I'm really hoping this sounds familiar to y'all. I'm hoping this doesn't sound like the first time that you hear these things. But yeah, this is the beginning of Unit 2. Okay, so this is stuff that you probably learned who knows how long ago. Anyway, these are unique rules to each chamber. So, excuse me, we have House debate rules. So we have, they follow Robert's Rules of Order. It means they follow a formal procedure to maintain order in debate. And it looks different for both the House and the Senate. Okay. For the House, there's time limits and it's very formal. The members may speak for up to 1 hour, and that's it. They address only the Speaker of the House, and they use formal language. Also, I want to bring up germane amendments. It's basically amendments must be directly related to the bill being considered. Okay, it keeps debate focused and organized. They can't bring up something unrelated when they're debating a bill. They have to debate only the stuff that's in that bill. Okay, so like if a bill's talking about highway funding, you cannot add an amendment that talks about tax rates. This doesn't apply to the Senate, though, which we'll get to in a second. Also, we got the Rules Committee. This determines which bills reach the floor and under what conditions, right? So, like time for debate and amendment rules. They're very powerful. They control the House agenda. And we got the Committee of the Whole. It's basically like an informal discussion forum of the entire House. It speeds up complex bills before a formal vote. Okay. And then we got we got Senate debate rules. Okay? Anyone who stands to speak must be recognized because again, the House is over 400 people. Because the House is over 400 people, they have to keep things focused, and that's why the rules are the way that they are. But the Senate is really small in comparison. The Senate is 100. That's less than a quarter of what the House is. So any senator can speak if they're recognized, and there is no time limits. So they can talk for as long as they want. That's where the filibuster comes from, right? The filibuster, as I mentioned in class, is when a senator will talk and talk and talk, and it doesn't even have to be related to the bill that they're talking about. The longest filibuster was Storm Thurmond when he filibustered the Civil Rights Act of 1957 for over 24 hours. So he was basically like protesting the passage of the Civil Rights Act, which is insane. But just to give you an idea of how crazy the filibuster can be. Also, the Senate can propose non-germane amendments, meaning things that are unrelated to the bill. And we'll talk about that later. Those are called riders. I'm not sure if you've already learned them or not. But we also have the cloture rule, okay, that limits debate and ends the filibuster, but it does require a 3/5 vote by the senators, meaning 60 votes out of the 100 to invoke it. This forces the Senate to move into a vote. Okay. Oh, I skipped holds. My bad. Holds are when a senator can signal to delay a bill or nomination even before debate starts. It's like a tool to negotiate further with the other party or to try to get concessions or like add things that they're interested in for the bill. Okay. I believe I covered everything. Non-germane, filibuster, cloture rule. Yes. Okay. So that covers today's review. And I wish I was there. It would have been much better to do this in person, but hopefully you got something out of it. Don't forget that your next set of 4 summaries are due tomorrow. The mini FRQ is due tonight. I will get on top of grading today because I'm going to be homesick, but just so you guys are aware. All right, guys, take care. I'll see you, hopefully,